So I think for me, it always starts with knowing where you're starting from, right? You have to kind of know. The example I use when I talk to parents is if I decided tomorrow that I wanted to lose weight, I would need to know one thing first, and that is how much do I weigh today, right? You have to know how much you're starting in order to measure how much have you lost. If I just start changing my eating and I don't first measure to see where I'm starting from, how will I know what progress I'm making? Right. And there, maybe I'll feel better, maybe I'll sleep better, maybe my clothes will get loose, but I won't be able to measure the improvement and know whether or not I've met my goal if I don't know where my starting place was. And so for me, it's always really important that everybody start with an evaluation. And one of the questions people ask is, should I ask for a 504 evaluation or an IDEA evaluation? And since the evaluation process is more finely described in IDEA, I always suggest people start with an assessment under IDEA rules because there are timelines and procedural requirements that have to be met, even if you don't think they're going to qualify. And nobody should be asserting that prior to evaluating a kid anyway, because if you haven't yet tested and assessed, how do you know if they're going to qualify? Nobody can tell by looking at you how your disability is interacting with you and these demands. We have to first evaluate that, right? So I always start with the evaluation under IDEA. Do not be put off by, well, he's not going to qualify for special education. I don't care. Evaluate him, please, or her. We want to know what they need. We need to know their strengths as well as their needs. We need to know what do they do exceptionally well as where are the areas that they may have some difficulty. Because especially in terms of accommodating, we want to work with the areas of strength that the student has in order to accommodate for their areas of need. And if we haven't already established what those are, how do we know? And so a lot of times we do see these very generic 504 plans where they give it time and a half on tests and they have the students sit close to the teacher or close to the front of the room. And maybe they have note-taking assistants or they can get a copy of the teacher's notes if they want, so they don't have to be really good note takers and things like that. Okay, those are a great start for certain kinds of kids who have certain kinds of needs. But those are not appropriate accommodations for every single student with every single disability. And in many cases, they aren't even helpful. A student who does not have processing speed needs doesn't need a time and a half situation, right? And students who have processing needs might need double or triple time, not time and a half. So this sort of just generic application of a standardized package of accommodations, it may be efficient in terms of the paperwork and the school, but it doesn't actually individually address anything because we don't know whether we're actually doing anything helpful for this student. And in some students' cases, ironically, preferential seating or seating at the front may actually be less helpful. Some students do better in the back of the room because then nothing is happening behind them. They can see everything that's going on. And so they can take in all the information they need by seeing where it's all going on. Putting that student in the front of the room is asking for them to do this all day long because they're hearing and knowing stuff is going on and they can't see it. So they need to go and look at it, right? And so they actually are served worse by placing them in a preferential seating environment than if we were to put them in a different place in the classroom. Some students do well on the periphery. They need to be on an aisle or they need to be away from the door because all of the people walking up and down the hallway is more of a distraction. And so placing them in the middle of the room where they aren't near windows or doors where there's stuff happening, maybe that's more appropriate for that student. But you won't know that unless you've evaluated the student and included all of their strengths as well as their needs in that evaluation. So for me, it always starts with evaluating, and then let's look at what are we looking at? What does this student need in order to benefit from this activity, environment, task, and so on? And and parents need to have that done through public agencies as much as possible, because the public agencies are the ones charged with providing for that. And I see a lot of times parents will spend a lot of money out of pocket for private evaluations that give some but not all of the information that we need. It's much better, in my experience, for them to start with the school district, with the public agency evaluation first, and then look and see, is there anything more we need? Did we miss something? Do we disagree? Then you get into the issues of independent educational evaluation and so on. If you disagree with or aren't sure that something was adequately covered. But that's much better than going to a private psychologist or a private OT or a private speech path and spending money for a private evaluation that may not cover all the information that you're trying to uncover.